So welcome. Hi, it's Peggy, and you made it. You are in the Living After Life Losing a Son webinar. I remember the first time I attended a grief webinar. How are you feeling about attending this? Is it a little bit scary? I know it was for me. I didn't know what to expect or how to act. It was scary and it was daunting to think about attending a webinar. So I created a plan if I didn't like it. It was just to simply leave, turn off my video, and click exit. I hope that you don't do that because I didn't, and it was a big difference for me. I had to face when I was going to turn on my camera. My eyes were going to be puffy from crying. My hair was a mess, and I hadn't brushed my teeth. I felt like that. Everybody was judging me and that I was scummy. I just felt uncomfortable. I felt yucky. I didn't want to be there. I really wanted to be doing something else, but what was I going to do? Grief was starting to run my life. I was there because my son had died by suicide. I wanted to do other things. I was physically ill, unable to focus, and I had serious anxiety at night. Well, these are reactions, common reactions to grief. Have you experienced any of them? You might have. Think about that. You might suffer from other symptoms of grief, depression, sadness, loneliness, isolation, fear of healing, fear of forgetting your child, your son. You may have poor sleep. You may be sick. You may not have a sense of purpose. What have you seen and felt? You're not alone on those. These are all common reactions, and they're normal. I want to let you know that they're normal. And you signed up to attend this webinar because most likely you've lost a son, maybe another child. It may have been recently, a long time ago, or somewhere in between. No matter when, how long ago, you are in the right place. Now, if you haven't lost a son, this class is still good for you because grief is grief. And if you're having a difficult time, this is the place to be. Welcome. And be sure to stick around for the entire webinar. I have been working on this, putting my heart into it so that you have some tips and tools to help you in your grief. So for those of you who don't know my story, I want to share that with you. I started working with grieving moms, writing books and speaking after my son died by suicide. And my writing started on Facebook when I first announced his passing. And then I announced his memorial service. And then for some reason, I don't know why, maybe it was a God thing, I started journaling my journey on Facebook. I just kept posting my grief. I was vulnerable. I didn't hold back. I showed my emotions. I shared my pain. And then about the 4th month, people who were following me and supporting me started to say, hey, you're really helping us with your grief. And I was just fascinated by what I was doing was helping them. And because of that, they had said, it's like, you need to write a book. Well, I tell you, I was deep in my grief and I wasn't prepared to write a book, but I was prepared to continue to blog my journey on Facebook. And I did that for 13 months. But at 10 months, I had a couple new friends, both of them authors, say, hey, look, you really need to share your journey because you are helping people. And I finally said yes at 10 months. I was like, okay, I can do this because it was a challenge. And I felt that I wanted to help others because it was going to be so important to help others. So they were encouraging, and I thought it'd be super easy. You know, I told you I journaled on Facebook for a year, and I thought I could just pull off those posts, those comments, and those images, those pictures, and voila, I had a book. Well, I tell you what, I didn't just have a book by doing that. It's entirely different. So although it's not a book, I do have that entire year worth of blogs pretty much unedited on my website, thegriefspecialist.com. It's called The First 365 Days. And the reason why I keep that there is as a reminder, because I have been in the depths, in the throes of grief, but that shows my journey. And you can see the progress in my journaling on Facebook. Something else I haven't shared with you is that 30 years earlier, I had a 9-month-old daughter die in a daycare accident. She was just 9 months old. That was a horrific time in my life. And as a grieving mom, I didn't have a whole lot of support. Child loss was the elephant in the room. Nobody wanted to talk about her, including her dad. Have you felt like that nobody wants to talk about your child? That's common. That is very common to experience that. It was difficult and lonely. And now I was going through it a second time. And this time I decided no mother, including myself, needed to do it alone. I wanted to be a resource of experience and a beacon of inspiration. If I could do it, you could do it. And my newfound purpose in life became helping others work through their grief from the loss of a child. Well, I've had other losses too, many others. So the magnitude of my losses overwhelms me sometimes. I've had both my parents pass away, my sister at a young age, a niece who was only 16 by suicide, and other young adults by suicide. Well, those were tough times. And then when my son died, I was like, gosh, how am I going to make it through this again? But I already experienced so much loss, and it also made it through so much more loss. So I said, how did I do this? How? And when I started looking back, I went all the way back to my youth. And as a child, I was a tomboy. I loved being outdoors. And when I was outdoors, I felt alive. I felt grounded. I felt connected. I felt like I could do anything. I could win anything. That was a huge piece in just being back to nature. And then as I grew older, I became a personal trainer working in health and wellness. I worked with nutrition and as a wellness coach. And then I also developed a love for personal development, be able to change the way I thought, the way I acted, how I responded to circumstances, and then positivity to get me through tough times. And I tell you, my son's death was definitely a tough time, a hard season. So through all that, people encouraging me to write a book, looking back on my youth, I pulled all these resources together to travel my child loss journey for the second time. That became my first book, Life After Child Loss, The Mother Survival Guide to Cope and Find Joy. It was written and published in the very beginning of the pandemic, but it has meaningful and useful and practical tools to help mothers with their grief. And then my second book, Survive Your Child's Suicide, How to Move Through Grief to Healing, started as a grief ministry for my church, because I felt there was a specific need for child loss, child suicide. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, now because it didn't turn out, I've written my second book. It's the result of that program that didn't turn out for my church. So Survive Your Child Suicide. Both of these are available on Amazon, and these come from all those experiences that I pulled together. So that's my story, and I'm hoping that you will be able to relate to some of those things that you're going through. Have you experienced any of these things? Felt the grief and sadness and loneliness and just confusion? I know I did. So you've heard my story, and now I want to get into something that's going to give you a tool. We're going to do some breathing, a breathing exercise. I'm not going to ask you to pair off with anybody. For today, we're not going to do that. But I do want you to participate because this is going to help you. And this is called a box breathing method, box breathing technique. So what I want you to do is go ahead and free your hands up, take everything out of your hands, put down your coffee, put down your pen, put down your phone, sit up straight up in your chair and ground your feet on the floor. Go ahead and put both feet on the floor. And then we're going to get your heart rate up just a little bit. And then we're going to move into that box breathing. So are everybody ready? Yeah, be ready. Let's get some hands up. Give me some love in that chat box. Put, thumbs up. And so what we're going to do is let's just go ahead and get that elevated heart rate and run in place. Move your feet in place. You can hear my feet moving. And then take, yeah, there's some thumbs up. Yes, I love it. Give me some loving in there. Okay, go ahead and do this. Let's get that heart rate up. And I'm, slapping my thighs, just getting my body moving a little bit. Come on, you can do this. We're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And stop. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for getting this. So now we're going to learn how to lower your heart rate. I intentionally raised it, but in your grief, you may find that your heart rate is spinning fast all the time. So we're going to slow it down. Okay. And it's going to help clear your thoughts and reduce your anxiety. So think of your breathing as a box. It's a pattern. So I'm going to walk you through it first, and then we can do it. So in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, or in your imaginary box, go ahead and draw a horizontal line. Then you're going to draw a line down, and then draw a line back across, and then back up. So you're going to make a square. You're going to make a box. Each one of those lines represents a breath. The ones that are going horizontal are inhale, and the ones that are going vertical are exhale. And you do each one of those to a count of 3. So you'll draw that box. You inhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, you'll exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. And exhale, 1, 2, 3. Now, the way I want you to really focus on breathing is go ahead and put a hand on your belly. I don't want to see your chest rising, but I want to see your belly rising, for you to feel your belly rising. So when you breathe in, breathe deep and really push your belly out, just like you had a big old turkey dinner, okay? And then when you exhale, go ahead and push on your belly, on your tummy, and get rid of that stale, stagnant air, okay? So we're going to do that all in one. We'll make one box, we'll take a breath, and then we'll do 2 more, okay? So inhale, belly expands, 1, 2, 3, and then exhale, 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to inhale, 1, 2, 3, and exhale, 1, 2, 3. You're connecting that. Okay, we're going to do that one more time, or 2 more times. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, and exhale, 1, 2, 3. You're making that box. I know I'm not connecting my box that, but you know what you're supposed to be doing. And this will be our last one. So push that air all the way in. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. And exhale, 1, 2, 3. Okay, what you just learned is a way to help reduce your anxiety, slow your breathing down. So when we do that, it can make a difference. So how are you feeling now? Do you feel like your heart rate has come down? So where can you use this? You're asking, it's like, you're teaching me how to breathe. This is just basics. Yes, it is the basic, but I tell you what, it works anywhere and anytime. So what I suggest, if you are walking into an experience or something has come up that you feel like you're anxious and you want to recenter and refocus yourself, practice doing this. You can do 5 to 10 rounds of this box breathing, and it will help you. You will feel more relaxed, let go of your tension, your heart rate is slower, okay? So give me some love in the chat box. Wave a hand, give a thumbs up, send a heart. How do you feel? Is this helping you? So this is our first tool today. It's practical and you can use it anywhere. And you should be ready. Are you ready now to learn more? Awesome. I see some clapping going on. That's awesome. Thank you. Ready to learn more. And so now we're going to talk about the uniqueness of loss, the changes that you experience, and loss of hope with a child. We're going to dive into each one of those areas. So the uniqueness of child loss. I mentioned once already that child loss is unique because it's the elephant in the room. You might be feeling things that it's unique, but you haven't been able to put your finger on it. So when I work with my clients who have lost a child, they come to me with different challenges: grief, shame, sadness, depression, guilt. Other things that make child loss unique is that it's traumatizing. And as a mother or as a parent, you can be traumatized even more, or social repercussions because you're now are a mother who's lost a child. You may have difficulty regaining memories, or in the cases of sudden death, such as murder or suicide or accident, You've lost that ability to say goodbye. And I tell you, as a mother, one of the things that really hits home with me is that I feel responsible for keeping my children safe. And yet they died, whether under my watch in my home, at the daycare, or on their own. I still feel that responsibility. And one of the other symptoms that people come to me with when I'm working with those clients is broken heart syndrome. You feel like you're just so deeply crushed that your heart is breaking. And that's those hormones and those stress hormones that are causing your heart muscle to physically ache. That's true. So all of these are examples that make child loss unique and makes recovery difficult. Remember, I've been through it twice. And one of the things that my clients tell me is that loneliness is the number one challenge. So they have, everybody that come in town and give you support, and then they go home, they go back to their work, and then you're left in a void. Like the 2 weeks after, it's like all of a sudden you're on your own. And the world continues to turn and march forward while theirs seems to keep going. I remember looking around and saying, don't you know that my son has died? I want to scream it. I am grieving, and everyone should stop what they're doing. Have you guys felt that way? Oh, if you have, you are among the many, because we feel like the world should stop. I bet you have felt that. And then for those who were there to support me, they tried their best to understand what I was going through. However, I would get looks of pity sometimes, and they would tiptoe around the subject of my children, especially my first loss. And deep in my heart, I wanted to talk about them. And there was a few people in my inner circle that I could lean upon. But I tell you, I had to lean hard. And sometimes they couldn't absorb what I was wanting to do, and they couldn't support me. So child loss is that elephant in the room. Oh, people just don't want to talk about them. They fear they're going to cause more pain or cause you to cry. Rather than risk hurting you or causing this pain, they don't say anything. This was just so hard for me to comprehend, because we so freely speak about an 84-year-old grandmother who has passed away. She lived and she died. And why can't we speak of a 9-month or a 24-year-old who lived and died? This is part of that circle of life. We don't like the timing, but they both need to be recognized, their names spoken, and memories lived. Another thing with uniqueness is child loss is that it can be so lonely. You may have a tendency to lean into yourself and deal with your own personal pain. And this pain can be experienced when you're alone, physically alone, or in a crowd, because you feel like nobody understands you and you're drawn inwards with your pain. And this grief loneliness can come up during other milestones, such as certain days of the week, days of the month, the year, the anniversaries, or other events. And it also, in those anticipations, we dream about those events that we're not going to experience, like graduation, weddings, grandkids. Times like this, we really yearn for our children, and you miss that opportunity to participate in those. And also another thing with this loneliness is that grief is unique and individual as it gets. But with the society today, this do-it-yourself attitude is so detrimental to us. Grief is not meant to be experienced alone, even though you're doing your best to do it by yourself. It's easy to feel alone. That independence and do-it-yourself attitude can be, if you're not doing it that way, then it's perceived as a sign of weakness in your grief. And that's not true. It's a downward spiral when you don't get support. You may just want somebody to hug you, somebody to talk with you about your child when grief is striking the hardest. You don't have to do it alone. Reach out to someone. And then grief, loneliness can also be impacted by maybe some of your pre-existing conditions, your lifestyle, your age, your gender, what you have felt and who you are, your previous experiences with it, what you think about death and dying, those pre-existing conditions, your mental health status, those relationships you have with other people, and the relationship you had with the person who died, your child. Those can cause grief loneliness. And other things that impact it is your ability to move through this grief loneliness is increased social media. This is a sign of having that, and that you're feeling like that's the only connection that you have. But you further isolate yourself because it's not a true connection. Or you have that persistent need all the time, overwhelming, to talk about your loss. And not, there's a healthy way to grieve, and then there's a healthy way in which not to grieve. So that persistent, that yearning, or feeling like everything is just an effort, those are signs of grief loneliness. Or you retreat and you deflect any attempts from others to connect because you think they don't understand. You're like, no, they don't understand, so I'm not even going to give them a chance. We can create our own grief loneliness. So now we've talked about grief loneliness. Well, you're probably asking, well, hey, how do I make it through this? This is horrible, and I see myself in this. Do you see yourself doing any of things, social media, retracting, not letting other people help you? Yeah, those are signs of it. And you don't have to do it alone. So how do you work through this? Well, I like to start with accepting your current circumstances. And again, while this seems elementary, it is. It's a basic. But when you start with those basics, it's your foundation, which enables you to be able to move forward. I love a quote from Oprah Winfrey about acceptance. To paraphrase, she noted that radical acceptance applies to every challenge in life. She says that stress comes from wanting something to be different from what it actually is. And once you accept a situation, then you make a decision regarding what to do next. We have to accept that this has happened, accept that this is where we are. I like this. Choose to process your grief, though. Live in the moment and do not create what cannot be recreated. We can't wish our children back. It just doesn't happen. Determine your ability to move forward by accepting it. Now, let me tell you, acceptance does not mean you're left unscathed. Acceptance does not mean you are healed. It does mean that you are willing and open to accept this and move forward. So some of you have lost a child, honestly, can't accept that they are gone and you are stuck. And I'm sorry that if you are stuck, but consider accepting that this is happening, that this has gone on. And acceptance doesn't mean that you're thinking that they're less meaningful to you, that they're not worth the pain and sorrow. It's accepting that your life has been changed forever and you will never return to who you were before your loss. Yet you will learn to live with who you are now without your loved one's presence. And once you get that, you can start down that road of healing. And let me set something straight. Acceptance does not mean forgetting their existence, your love for them, or your relationship. However, not accepting their death will cause you to keep in the past while the rest of the world keeps going. And as you have been grieving, have you felt like the world should stop and grieve with you? Well, yes, in some circumstances, but it's not going to happen. So accept your loss, be open to help and support, and understand you do not have to face your grief alone. So with my story of acceptance, my son died by suicide. Startled me. I had no idea. I got a phone call on a Friday afternoon that he had killed himself. I had no idea. He was 24. He was 24. He was getting grounded in his new job. He was looking for a relationship. I had just spoken to him a couple days before. I had no idea that he had any struggles, but I had to accept that he made this decision. He was gone forever, no longer to be touched, no longer to be hugged. So it involved recognizing that my life and soul were once again changed forever. I would never return to the person I was before my loss. I was changed. It's not that it's good or bad, it's just different. And I also accepted my son was with me in spirit, but no longer physically present. I had a choice to make. Was I going to allow my grief to control my life, or did I want to be in charge of it? I accepted this. I decided to say goodbye to how things were in the past, then moving forward with my circumstances. And so along with that, I gave myself permission to grieve. Have you felt like you haven't grieved, or you're in a culture where nobody allows you to grieve? Maybe a spouse or friends or work, people don't allow you to grieve. Well, early in my grief journey, I gave myself permission to grieve whenever and whenever it arose. You might be asking what that looked like. I can tell you it took a lot of courage and overcoming my pride to do it. I was prideful because I didn't want other people to see me. And it took courage to grieve in public. For example, if I was going into the grocery store, something could trigger me. An orange, overhead music, somebody who looked like my son, or, even just looking at the same place. I was like, oh, I went to this grocery store. It triggered memories. And sometimes I was okay. And other times, boom, I was into this wave of grief. I decided I'm going to let my grief flow whenever. And it was such a gratifying thing, because for people who stopped and asked me what was wrong and if they could help, I simply stated that my son had recently died and I was missing him. And you know what? The community and the support that I got in the grocery store was amazing, because we connected. I had others sharing their stories of loss and how they made it through. So by giving myself permission to heal and grieve whenever and wherever, it facilitated my healing, and I had unique connections with others on a distinct and new level. So giving myself permission to heal. So I need to get rid of the guilt. My son died by suicide. And like I said, I questioned why and how and why didn't he come to me? Those are all things that could put me into that canyon of why, and then feeling guilty. So as a suicide loss survivor, I found there's something that really helped me. And that was the 3 C's. And this is a bonus tool that I want to give you to help you as you navigate the loss of your son. I don't know if anybody else has experienced the loss of a child to suicide, but this has been instrumental. My son did go through a 12-step recovery program. And I've applied these 3 C's from 12-step recovery programs to being able to navigate grief. Who wants to hear about those 3 C's? Now you can have your pen out and your notebook and you take notes with this. So here's the bonus for being on the webinar today. It's a technique I call the 3 C's. And the first C is cause. I didn't cause my son to die. You didn't cause your child to get sick. I didn't cause him to take his life. The first C is cause. The second C is cure. I couldn't cure the problems my son was facing, no matter how hard I tried. As a mom, I want to be responsible for keeping him safe, but I couldn't. He took responsibility for his actions. And when he went through that 12-step program, that was one of the things he learned. And I know from the bottom of my heart that he's taking responsibility for those actions now, even as he is in heaven. And the third C is control. Having had children, you know that there's a very small window in their life where we actually have control over them. Anywhere from, it stops from 2 to 3 years, because they're growing, they're learning how to make decisions on their own. And we can't decide how they think, how they react, how they respond. So my son was 24 when he died. I didn't have control over any aspects of his life. I could control myself and how I responded. And then I also had to think about my daughter. So those were the 3 C's. But when I was talking about acceptance and permission to grieve and permission to heal, that permission to heal is because I have 2 other grown daughters and now 3 grandchildren. They needed me. And how would my healing or non-healing impact them? I felt they needed a mother and a more. That's what my grandkids call me, is more. That they needed me. I want to be that example and role model for dealing with grief, because grief, it can't be ignored. It's going to happen. Death is a part of life. And one of the other areas that I suggest in helping you to work through the issues and the challenges is getting that support. Work with a professional to help you with your loneliness. So in a culture where being independent and do it yourself is connected to being strong and courageous, well, in grief and grief recovery, this thought line of thinking can prolong your healing and be detrimental to it. So it's important to partner with a professional to help you. So there's a difference in between traditional therapy and a specialist. And I want to bring this to light because if you've ever been to a specialist for health issues, well, they specialize in orthopedics, or they specialize in heart issues, or they specialize in women issues. They're specialists for a reason, because they have focused their attention to that. And that's me. I said, I'm a specialist, a grief specialist, focusing on child loss and child suicide. So traditional therapists will focus on the past. I focus on what we can do to help you to move forward. And most moms who are ready to move through their loss, with the clients that I've had, they can oscillate in between feelings of sorrow and happiness, and it's natural. And I help you to understand that. So I want to help you to be able to move forward. And how I work with people is reinforcing the resilience that you don't realize that you have, focusing on the future, help you to develop your tools and techniques which apply specifically to you, and guide you through unfamiliar territory. With compassion and understanding, I'm with you side by side. And I tell you, therapists have limited knowledge. They've got their book knowledge. I have knowledge and a practical experience. You are still alive and you have a future to plan. And loss may change your future. And as a grief specialist, I teach you how to adapt. So thinking differently, think that loss does not have to define you, but how it can refine you and make you better. And it takes support and the right resources to move forward from traumatic child loss. And above all, remember, you're not alone. Your grief is unique. Grief is universal, though. Everyone will experience it. So let's recap. We've covered a lot. Don't leave. Maybe take a deep breath. We talked about child loss, went into the feeling of loneliness and being alone, and how to accept that child loss by giving yourself permission to grieve and heal, using the bonus tools, and consider working and partnering with somebody who can help you. So our second major point is that grief changes you forever and for now. The loss of a child is a big change, one that you never anticipated experiencing, and now you're part of this child loss club. Changes your routine, your life, and your plans. Change is difficult, whether it's new, whether it's good, like a new job or marriage or a baby. However, the changes we don't want to occur, death, divorce, loss of a job, these changes forever and long lasting. There may be an underlying hope that things can be the same. As I mentioned before, that doesn't happen. It's a futile expectation. And if you consistently yearn for your loved one to come back, that will stop you from healing. You want to be able to recognize that you've changed and that you're going through. So grief impacts you in so many ways. So it impacts your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And it also changes who you are in the inner core, in the whole being. So we're going to take a few minutes and talk about how it changes your health, your physical health, fatigue, restlessness, chronic pain, and then with mental health, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, emotional health. Well, that can be that consistent feeling of hopelessness, withdrawal from friends and family, prolonged crying, and then spiritual health, loss of faith in your higher power, inability to show gratitude, loss in your ability to pray. So these lists are not all inclusive. What ones have you experienced? You can put those into the chat box. Remember, this is about a community, and what you're experiencing may help somebody else and they can relate and go, oh yeah, I'm experiencing that. I don't have hope for the future. Yeah, maybe they're experiencing that, or maybe that they've had colds. So by you sharing in the chat box what you're experiencing, that will help others. That would be great. And there's ways to improve that. So I offer a grief survival 8-week program. So today we're talking a little bit about some of these basics, but we go deeper into them. And so clients who have worked with me find that these are very specific to their circumstances. And, you can sign up for a free trial consultation at thegriefspecialist.com. And that's where we review how things would work for you. So I'm going to give you some answers and some tools for physical health and how to work through those changes that you're going through. Physical health is so often forgotten when it comes to healing in your grief. But it's more of a holistic approach because we have to look at your whole body. And I tell you, I've seen the impact of emotional and physical stress on others, especially my sister and my father. They passed away after stressful times in their lives. And I didn't want that to happen to me. Other physical things are colds and flus and cancer and fatigue, arthritis, poor memory loss, inflammation, all these different things. So I didn't want to be that one person that died from cancer, just like my parents, my dad and my sister did. I wanted to be alive and present for my daughters. And I want to share something with you. I believe that you have at least one person to live for. And that one person is you. Because nobody else is going to do that for you. That's why you're here. You want to move through your grief and healing. And it's common to feel like you have a loss of control. There's some things that you can control. And if this is you, you want to make some changes, you want to move through your grief, you want to create a new life, type yes in that chat box. Do this for you to live for you. I believe in you. You can do this. I've done this and I've done it twice. I'll be with you every step of the way in that grief survival program. Remember, you're not forgetting your child. You're doing this to help yourself, honor them, and keep their memory alive. So some of the areas that you can work through in your physical health is exercise and nutrition. It helps you to focus. It helps you to sleep, offers a sense of control. And I've helped hundreds of people as a personal trainer. And even mothers who have lost a child have come to me and said, gosh, this made such a difference. And you can do aerobic exercise, strength training, and stretching. They're all parts of exercise. You can choose one or several modes of exercise. It increases your energy, improves your mood, reduces inflammation, reduces your risk of autoimmune diseases, lowers your risk of heart attack, and even helps to heal that broken heart syndrome. Wouldn't you want to feel better? You have control over this change that you're experiencing. The other area I really love to focus on, because it's one that just isn't brought up by traditional therapy, is talking about nutrition. And it's easy to go to those high food fats and sugars and salt and grab them, and it makes you feel better in the short run? Yeah, of course it does. But in the long term, it makes you feel worse. It plays with your blood sugar, which increases, causes your energy level to go up and down, and it impacts your mental focus. Cortisol, is released during times of stress. You want more of that food. It damages your cells. So we don't want to do that. So I want to offer grief healing focused eating. Let me repeat that. Grief healing focused eating. And so there's 7 things to that. Increase your consumption of plant-based foods, 9 to 13 servings. Drink at least 1/2 your body weight in ounces of water, and reduce or eliminate gluten, dairy, caffeine, alcohol, and sugar. I know this is a challenge and this is a lifestyle, but you are in this time of change anyhow. Let's make it for the better. You don't know how to do this. And that's why I choose to supplement my diet with whole food nutrition capsules with 9 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables. That's hard to get. So I take these capsules, drink a protein shake every day, and I know that they help keep me from experiencing the oxidative stress, which led to the ultimate cancer of my dad and my sister. So I do believe in lifestyle cancer, and we can talk further about this nutrition and how it's a simple solution with what you're going through. It's part of that holistic whole body healing. Give yourself all that fighting power. We can talk about it in a consultation. You can also email me info@thegriefspecialist.com, or you can visit the website, thegriefspecialist.com. So take some of these ideas and apply them. One other change that we experience is identifying your loss as a mother. Your identity is created by the way you think of yourself, how you define yourself, and the stories you tell yourself. As a mother, you feel you have lost this mother-son relationship. Then who are you? Well, you're still a mother. You are a mother no matter what. I'm a suicide loss survivor too. And now what? So you're going to create your new identity. This is part of your past. It's a mixture of the past, your present, and your future. The person you lost are parts of that and move forward. And your new identity can lead to positive gains, how you think about life, and you can make changes, positive changes in your role, in your physical health, and then even other areas of emotional, spiritual, and mental health. So working with my clients, they feel that things that have changed is their compassion for others, their ability to listen to others. Grief does change you. You may not like it, but embrace it, accept it. And how do you want that change to impact you? Are you open to creating the new you? We've covered a lot. Let's recap. We've talked about the box breathing and the uniqueness of child loss and accepting it. And then we've talked a little bit about some areas that you can heal in physical health. And that's with exercise and nutrition. And so in that grief survival program, it's 8 weeks. We really focus on all these and build an individualized and custom program for you. So let's move on now to our third and final part of today's webinar. You'll learn about that loss of hope. You're grieving the loss, and you may lose the loss of hopes, dreams, and expectations for that child and for you. That one hit me really hard on the chest. Have you lost dreams? Have you lost hopes? Yeah. And I think they were things that we took for granted that would happen someday. My son was 24 when he died. I planned on going to his wedding and planned on having grandchildren and camping and hiking with him. I also wanted him to carry on the family name. He was the last man who could do it. Well, with his death, that line of genealogy has come to a stop. Lost a son. And there's a different bond between a mother and a son. Not that a mother and daughter is bad. It's just that it's different. If you have a daughter, you recognize that as well. I have both girls and a boy, and you may know exactly what I mean. So how do you gain hope? How do we turn from seeing only dashed dreams and expectations? I shifted the way I thought about my life and my son's life and my future. I had hopes of him leaving a legacy. Dang it. He needed to leave a legacy, but it was one that was not created. But when I changed the way I thought about it, he did leave a legacy. He was helpful to those who needed it. He would jeopardize his own job to help others. He was also a fantastic hugger. Friends and family recall his hugs. He would give you a big bear hug, pick you up off your feet and swing you around, and your feet weren't touching the ground, and put you down and smile at you and just give you that warm embrace. That was a legacy. He was an amazing skateboarder, and he would wear out the toes of his shoes, flipping his board and practicing or teaching others, or even being a gamer that was so good that others felt he could be professional. He left a legacy. And now I can think about that. And I've learned to have an appreciation for life. That's another way to help to get through that lost dreams and hopes. Worrying about stuff is no longer important. The stuff is the latest smartphone, the current car, fashion clothes, the biggest house, or the hottest watch. What's your stuff? Let's not worry about that, and let's appreciate life. It's too short. Live in the moment. Stop and smell the roses. These are all true statements. And now we might consider more of them now that our child is gone. Our hearts are deeply wounded because of the moments we will never experience with them, but we can remember those. But then we can move forward and appreciate our life. I know I say I love you to my girls and to my grandkids more than ever. And I prefer having experiences with them instead of just giving them material objects. Another way to increase our appreciation for life is to serve others. One of my mentors sums this up beautifully. When you're having a bad day, take a moment to make someone else's day better. Look for opportunities to help others. Make that conscious decision to open the door, forgive somebody's road rage, buy someone's coffee. There's so many ways that you can help others. Volunteer. So far, we have covered talking about loneliness. We've covered other things as far as how you've changed in your health, those 4 areas of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, how you've changed as a mother. And then we talked about our loss of hope and ways to work through that. I know this is brief, but I wanted to give you some tools to be able to work through this. So it's my intention that you receive some tips to help you navigate the loss of your son. It's a horrible experience. I truly understand what you're going through. That is why I do these free webinars. I also offer the opportunity for you to work with me as your coach, as a specialist, to teach you in greater detail these tools and resources I've used for my own recovery and healing and that other clients have used. It's an 8-week grief survival program. We focus on these things in greater depth. You can turn to me for help and guidance. It consists of 8 weeks of video tutorials, homework to help you think differently, just like I thought differently about my son's legacy, hour-long one-to-one sessions with me. Remember, I've walked in your shoes. I've been there, and now I'm helping others get through it. People just like you. You also get a copy of my book in Life After Child Loss, a wellness assessment, a grief assessment, and 8 foundational grief survival tools. So get the support, what you need, in spite of what society tells you to suck it up and do it yourself. There is no shame in getting help, because wouldn't you rather feel better, be able to move through and help yourself? But it's really tough to do that because we don't get support. You can create the new version of you 2.0. And when you combine your past and your present and hopes and dreams of the future, it could be in the honor of your loved one. And the best way to determine if this is a good fit for you to go through this 8-week grief survival program is to schedule a trial session. It's free, 60 minutes, no obligation. You can find that. I'll go ahead and drop that link. Let's see how my technology works here in the chat box, or you can go to the Facebook group, or not the Facebook, my website, sorry, and go ahead and put that in there, thegriefspecialist.com, and you can find a way to schedule a simple grief consultation. Go ahead and you can get that scheduled at thegriefspecialist.com. And then the first point we covered was the uniqueness of child loss. Sorry, I'm having difficulty getting this in, but so thegriefspecialist.com. And as a reminder, please answer those polls, because that way you're going to help others. We talked about how your role has changed and how you can make a difference in those areas of health. If you suffered through mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health challenges, it's a holistic healing. Let's get you put back together. And grief is that personal opportunity for growth. You may find renewed energy in old activities, the ones you enjoyed before losing your loved one, or new ones. A new relationship may spring up, one of love and support for the person you are now. This is a time to seek meaning, not in the whys of what happened, but meaning for your future, a new purpose. It may involve getting involved, may encompass and getting involved and helping others. It can be in your loved one's honor, much like my books and my grief coaching and working as a specialist is in my son's memory and in his honor. I know he wants me to be helping others because he did this. And I know in my heart of hearts that he didn't intend to hurt me. So he wants me to help others. Or you may even do it for some cause that's near and dear to your heart that's always been on your mind. Grief may create a new level of compassion and passion. Out of loss, you could do more than you ever dreamt of. I never dreamt of writing books. 2 books available on Amazon, best-selling, speaking about suicide or being a podcast guest. Now, grief will ever be present, and with varying degrees. Sometimes it'll be better, sometimes it'll be worse. But there are other things, if you're open to it, that will bring you joy and contentment and a sense of purpose. This becomes the new you. Don't do it on your own. Don't do it by yourself. Schedule that grief consultation. It's available. I've got time, and I want to help you because you don't have to do this. So I have the privilege of experiencing peace and joy and happiness. I laugh. You can too. You don't have to be stuck in your grief. And I honor those I've lost by continuing and sharing their stories. And that way, in the simple act of remembering, they live on. And you will let them live on as well. You will be able to live on. One day at a time, but you can do this. So face life after losing a son. You can do it. I want to thank you so much for attending. The best way to get in touch is email info@thegriefspecialist.com. Visit my website, thegriefspecialist.com. Schedule your consultation. Let's chat. Let's see how I can help you and how you can move through your grief to healing. And again, thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you are here today. Thank you.